OpenAI just launched a new model that, get this, does not run on NVIDIA hardware. Finance bros and PR dudes covering this are going to miss this because you need to understand the underlying technical architecture to understand why this is massively significant for NVIDIA's valuation, especially with their earnings coming on February 25th. If you own NVIDIA stock or if you're on the sidelines waiting to buy, you need to pay attention to this. You need to know this. I'm going to break it down for you in this video. By the way, you like the hat? It's from Abandonware, link down there in the description. So here's what went down. OpenAI, in a continued effort to get worse SEO for their model names, releases GPT 5.3 Codex Spark. It is a lighter version of their existing coding model called Codex. What's different about this one is it's designed for real-time coding. If you have ChatGPT Pro, you can use it right now through their app on the Codex tab. You can use it in the Codex CLI, and you'll also have access in the VS Code plugin. The headline number is 1,000 tokens per second, which might not mean anything to you, but tokens per second is effectively how fast a model can produce a response. To put that in relative terms for you, any other frontier model, whether that be any of the other Codex models, ChatGPT, Claude, et cetera, they usually do about 30 to 100x tokens per second. So even the fastest frontier models on the market that you have access to right now, this is 10 times as fast. And here's the part that should make Jensen really nervous. This does not run on NVIDIA silicon. It runs on the Cerebras wafer scale engine 3. So not H100s, but different manufacturer entirely. And the WSE3 is a massive feat of engineering. It's truly impressive. It is a thick chip. It is big. It's actually the size of a typical silicon wafer. 46,000 square millimeters to be precise. And for comparison, NVIDIA's H100 is about 814 square millimeters. The WSE3, by the numbers, has 4 trillion transistors, 900,000 AI cores, and 44 gigabytes of on-chip SRAM. That is an insane amount crammed onto one chip, even if it is big. The memory bandwidth out of those numbers is 21 petabytes per second, which is extraordinary. Again, if that doesn't make any sense to you, let's compare it to an H100, which only does about 3 terabytes per second. So we're talking 7,000 times more bandwidth than NVIDIA's best option. This partnership between OpenAI and Cerebras was announced in January. This is the first real product to emerge out of that partnership. And OpenAI, Sammy Boy, was real clear about the strategy. They said, quote, diversifying compute infrastructure beyond GPUs for latency-sensitive workloads. It's a direct quote. You can read between the lines there, but if you need it spelled out, it's basically like Sam and Jensen are in a romantic relationship. Jensen goes out to the grocery store. Here's a weird knocking in the bedroom as he walks in, and Sam is in bed with somebody else. It's Cerebras. And he sits up, and instead of saying it's not what it looks like, he says, it's exactly what it looks like. We're diversifying. Now, if this was just one chip deal, one company making this, I'd say, probably some PR or publicity stunt, probably inflated numbers, doesn't really matter. But all of the hyperscalers are doing this, or they're at least attempting it. Google has been running inference on their own TPUs for years now. They're on version 6 now. Amazon built the regrettably named Trainium. They're on Trainium 3. I'm told that the first 2 movies weren't very interesting. Meta built MTIA for their own internal workloads, which nobody has ever heard of. Microsoft is building Maya. Nobody's ever heard of it. But my point is every hyperscaler is at least trying to get off of NVIDIA's monopoly. And you might say, Dr. J, it's a publicity stunt. It's a publicity stunt. You don't know what you're talking about. And that's not true. The best numbers we have for this are that these hyperscalers are running about 10 to 15% of their current workloads on custom silicon, whether that's developed in-house in the case of Google or with somebody like Cerebras for OpenAI. And it doesn't sound like a lot. It's just 10%. You can kind of shrug it off. But remember, in these videos for AI infrastructure, we're talking about this year a proposed spend from the hyperscalers alone of about $660 to $690 billion. So yes, 10% of that is a significant amount of money. That's empire building money. So NVIDIA still dominates about 90% of the AI accelerator market, but the dominance doesn't matter. Is that number moving up or is it moving down? That's what Wall Street cares about. Are you signaling strength or are you beginning to lose? And they're beginning to lose out. And part of that is model dynamics. Again, you're not going to understand this if you are not deep into the technicals of it. But model development and training has slowed down a little bit. The frontier models are getting better every year, but we're not seeing the massive gains like we saw with this last generation compared to the previous generation. And so when you're training a model, when you're building a model like Opus 4.6, you need these big, heavy lifting GPU clusters. And NVIDIA has a lock on that market. And specifically, their CUDA infrastructure is the best in class for this. It cannot be rivaled currently. What we are beginning to see, though, is this shift from an emphasis on training these models to doing more inference, at least in a percentage breakdown. And I can prove this very easily. You watching, how many times have you trained an AI model? Probably never. I'm pretty technical and I'm pretty into this stuff, and I have never trained a full-on AI model from the ground up. I've never done it, and I'm very, very interested in this stuff. I spent a lot of time on it. But I'll tell you what I do use, and you probably use Claude or ChatGPT. You probably Google search, and sometimes you use that little AI summary. All of that is what's called inference, when you're actually using the model to get a result out of it. And so we've seen percentage-wise a big shift from, yes, the labs are still training models, but there's a good approach for training. People are doing things largely the same way. There are discoveries being made, but a huge percentage-wise effort is now going towards inference because everybody is using these models. Very few people are training them. So NVIDIA's moat, which was training, especially with those CUDA drivers, is starting to diminish. In tech like the WSE3 are starting to dominate in the inference space. So it begs the question, why does NVIDIA have so much market share if most of the use of AI chips is now inference, and they don't do inference as well as other companies? They do training very well. The numbers are bold here, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but Cerebras claims 20 times faster inference than GPU clusters and 7 times better performance per watt. Let's break that down. Let's assume that those are PR numbers, right? Those are PR numbers. Those aren't real numbers. And so you got to divide them at least, let's be generous. Let's divide them by half. So we'll say 10x faster and 3.5x better performance per watt. The faster is just like right on the nose of it. I mean, it's like, yes, it would be great if these models responded faster. I think everyone could agree that's the biggest use case issue with a lot of these models is they take forever to respond. If you're going to use an Opus 4.6, it's correct every time, but it takes a long time to get back to you. And then the performance per watt, I mean, you environmentalists, you might be getting stoked about this, and I am too. I know that AI is pretty bad for the environment. But even from a business perspective, it's incentivized to build more energy efficient chips, because if you are in the data center building and purveying business, you're paying a boatload of electricity costs to power your data center. And so if you can get those gains by using other chips and the chips can do it faster, man, that's an obvious choice. It's kind of like when the Tesla came out originally and the 0 to 60 time, you know, if you were parked at a light next to a Corvette, some kind of a boomer or hot rod car, it could just smoke it off the line and it probably cost half the price as the Corvette. It's that kind of big paradigm shift that we're looking at. That bull case for NVIDIA has always been their moat. And right now the moat is starting to show some cracks in it. It's not like NVIDIA was doing really, really well before this. They had something kind of nefarious in their latest quarterly earnings that they try to cover up. And if you read the earnings, it's really clever how they kind of couch it and try to push this aside like, no, it's totally not a problem. And that's the China problem. It's an $8 billion problem to be precise. And the issue with that is in April 2025, the Trump administration banned their export of H20 chips to China. They partially reversed that at some point over the summer. There's some insider baseball going on there, but it seems like they are going to be able to ship those H20 chips to China at a much reduced capacity. So that's taken a huge chunk out of their sales. And that's not all. It's not just sales on the nose. Like we could turn around and sell those H20s to someone else. The H20s were developed specifically to be neutered and underpowered enough that they would meet the export regulation guidance. So if you're an American data center looking to buy some NVIDIA chips, it's like, no, I don't want the H20 chips. Like they're super underpowered. They're deliberately neutered because they were going to go to China. So they actually have a lot of these sitting in inventory. They're looking at a $4.5 billion inventory charge. They had buyers lined up from Alibaba, Tencent, ByteDance. They placed orders worth over $16 billion, and all of that, or at least most of it, went up in smoke. So the total rev impact for that across 2025 and 2026, like I mentioned, is about $8 billion. That's not a small number for a company, even if they are doing 50 billion quarters. So that future revenue outlook for Chinese business for NVIDIA, not looking good. So on the inference side, you got people starting to develop their own chips. On the China side, you got people starting to develop their own chips. So going into a Feb 25 earnings, man, I would hate to be Jensen right now. Those earnings will be on Feb 25. The conference call is going to start at 2 p.m. Pacific time. Let me tell you the 4 signals I'm watching out for in that call going into it. First are the headline numbers versus what Wall Street is guiding. Literally, if they do not beat, if they miss, nothing else in the call matters and can save them. The stock is going to tank in a bad way. NVIDIA always beats. This is one of the most reliable things. It's like so reliable, you can set your watch to it. They beat. That's what they do. They're NVIDIA. And so if they don't beat, I mean, right off the bat, everybody is going to tune out. Don't care what you're saying. Like, all I hear is you're losing. You're losing. And I don't want to invest money in you, and I want my money back. Second is the guidance. Jensen is in a horrifically bad position here because he has 2 options, right? He can say that our guidance is going to be lower. He can lower the guidance compared to expectations, and the stock is going to dip because it's like you're not confident that your company is going to keep growing, at least at the same rate it is. Or he can guide that it's going to grow in line with historical performance, in line with what the analysts are guiding. And even that might not be enough given where the stock is trading at. Third, we got to hear about inference diversification. And I'll let you in on a little secret on this. If Jensen gets hit with a question or proactively mentions inference diversification, and when I say inference diversification, I mean basically what are you doing to address the fact that a bunch of these other companies are building their own custom silicon to compete with you, and they're not going to need you for as much inference work anymore. If he gives some answer about how their proprietary CUDA is the best, it's unassailable, they're sunk. They are so sunk. If he mentions CUDA in that response in a favorable way for inference, man, wrecked. He's just trying to block and tackle, and he's banking on the fact that the analysts are too dumb, which might work out actually, to see past what he's saying. The only correct answer he can give here is about Blackwell-specific performance. And when I say give an answer about Blackwell-specific performance, if he says anything like might be, could be, should, we expect, any of those weasel words, he's also in trouble. The only correct answer he can give is concrete data on Blackwell performance. Concrete, real data on how this is going to save them on the inference front. And if that doesn't manifest, you know that their development isn't far enough along to mount a serious threat to these new contenders. Fourth, watch the data center revenue breakdown. NVIDIA is classically shady about how much of their product is going towards inference versus training. But if they mention that inference revenue is growing slower than the overall market for inference, which is my hypothesis, this would all but confirm that the alternatives are winning. The stock has been trading around 188 for 6 months. Technicals point to maybe 195 to 200 on a beat. But if any of these risk factors that I just mentioned hit, the downside is a lot more than $12. I can tell you that right now. Look, I'm not saying to sell your NVIDIA, but what I am saying is that the narrative is changing and they haven't addressed this properly. And I don't think they can address it. The monopoly narrative that got them from $15 to $188 is starting to show some real cracks. OpenAI running their new model on Cerebras is a signal. The $8 billion China hole is a signal. And the hyperscalers building out their own custom silicon across the board is another signal. I'm going to do a full NVIDIA earnings analysis after that earnings call on Feb 25. That's going to pop up on the channel 1 to 2 hours as fast as I can edit it and post it after those earnings. And we're going to have the best analysis on this channel. I know what's going on at the technical level. I've worked in software, I've worked in hardware, I've been an engineering director, and I know what's going on at the financial level as well. I'm going to be able to call them out. If there's any BS, I'm going to be able to explain to you what a lot of those technical decisions and guidance means. And I'm also going to inform you on the financial ramifications of those things. If you want the analysis before anyone else, join us on the newsletter. Link is down there in the description. Thank you for watching.